Welcome to Behind the Recipe. I'm your host, Christina Hitchcock. Join me every week as we dive into the joys of cooking, explore kitchen tips and tricks, and share delicious recipes that will inspire your next meal. So whether you're a seasoned cook or just learning your way around the stove, there's something here for everyone. Today, we're talking with Dave and Deanna from DK's Corner in Jessup, Pennsylvania, all about gnocchi. And I'm so excited about this, and I know my son is going to be super excited too. So, welcome to the show, Dave and Deanna.
Hi, thanks for
Hey,
having
thank
us.
you.
Sure. So, before we get started, why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about yourselves?
Well, my name is Dave Clem. I been in the restaurant business since 2006. Started off doing hoagies, went into fine dining, then back to hoagies, and that's where we're at now. But with a little bit of a twist, we do a lot more now. The homemade pastas, we bring in different features for the week, and now we're trying to incorporate some of our fine dining stuff into quick fix meals.
Oh, I love that. I love that
A
so
little
much.
variety.
A
We
good
don't just stick
variety.
to one game plan. Yeah.
That's what keeps it interesting. I love seeing your menus that you post on Facebook. And I think one of the things that I love the most is how creative you are with what you offer, like the food that you offer. And I can see that now that you say that, how you're doing like that fusion of fine dining with like grab and go style.
Yeah, we like to keep it, switch it up and instead of the same old same, anywhere you can get a cheesesteak or an Italian and they're great. They're classic staples. They're, our go-tos a lot of the time, but it's nice to just like make it funky. Like, we did a chicken marsala sub once and
Yeah.
everybody loved it. So it's cool. It's fun.
Yeah. Or as we were talking about before we went live, the porchetta fries, which is
Yeah.
the thing that I'm obsessed with these days. No, that's awesome. And you know what? It's funny because you see that like all over social media now, how um standard recipes are really taking on new lives. Like for years I had this hoagie dip recipe on my site where it's basically like an Italian hoagie chopped up into a dip, but it really once TikTok got a hold of it, it just morphed into a whole thing. And I even saw now that like one of those chain sub shops is offering it as like a salad, like the Italian
Yeah, I've
hoagie
seen
without the
that.
bread.
We do a chopped Italian wrap.
Yeah.
And I saw it on TikTok and I started doing and people love them and it's cool. And it's just something so simple is like a different flavor because when you put the meats all together and you chop it together and
Yeah.
then you put the wrap on the grill and it kind of heats it up and the juices get going and
Yep.
they're time consuming to make, but they're cool and they're interesting and people
Yeah.
enjoy it. So
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
awesome. I love the creativity that goes into your menu. So that's awesome. But today, well, I could talk all day long about the different things that you offer, but today we're talking about gnocchi, right?
yes, yes.
Yep.
So but a very specific type of gnocchi, not just the traditional potato gnocchi, because we're heading into Lent now. So,
Yeah, so we're going to do a ricotta gnocchi.
mm,
So we
I
both
love.
have Italian backgrounds, and David grew up making pasta with his family. My family had an Italian restaurant growing up, so that's our roots. This is where we really,
Yeah.
thrive and take off. So we like to do the ricotta gnocchi because compared to the potato, I was never even really a huge gnocchi fan until I
Yeah.
had Dave's ricotta gnocchis because they're lighter and
Right.
they just have like a little fluff to them. And like I
Yeah.
said before, you could eat a lot more, and that's good.
Seriously, like that's the thing. Like when you get those potato ones, if they're not made right, they're like lead
Heavy.
balls. Like
Yes.
they just like hang in your stomach for hours. And yeah, but the I would imagine made with cheese, it's definitely lighter and you can eat a lot more that way. Awesome. So, other than texture, like and the weight of the pasta, is there anything different in the process of making a ricotta gnocchi versus a potato gnocchi?
I mean, it's pretty much the same. Potato gnocchis are a little bit tough. So some people use real potatoes, they boil them, soften them up, do the flour, they do everything the same way. But then sometimes they fall. My mother could never make a potato gnocchi. So they would fall
Really?
apart every time she would go to make them. So they started making ricotta gnocchis, and they found out that back then, cheese was just as cheap as potatoes back then.
Hmm.
So they would make them, and I was 4 years old, and I would roll them out. Or as I got older, then I was the one that had to mix the flour and everything together. But the difference between them is not much. The process isn't much. It's not much different besides for boil. The potato ones take a lot longer.
Okay, right, because you got to cook the potato,
You
obviously.
got to cook the potatoes unless you use instant potatoes, which a lot of people do. So I never really made them. I never really cared for them, but the variation between the instant potatoes and the regular potatoes, there's always a difference. Uh,
Mhm.
if a real potato will make the flavor. It won't be as heavy where like when you use the instant mashed potatoes,
Right.
that's what'll make it heavy because you got to let them
Oh,
soak and then you got to basically make them in mush. But
right, right. Yeah, I could see where they would be more dense that way.
yeah,
Yeah,
And
for sure.
these, I mean, we could whip the, well, David does, I don't, but he whips them up. I just sign them up for things. Like people will call, they're like the other day, somebody called and we had a lot of stuff going on. And she's like, well, it's just for like me, my son, and my husband. Like, do you have any gnocchis? Because sometimes we do have them like just in the freezer ready to go because we'll sell
Hmm.
them by the bag frozen. And I'm like, oh, yeah, he could do it. It's totally fine. So, and he's back there. How long did you say?
it takes 7 minutes for me to
Yeah.
make dough
From start to finish,
from start to finish. It'll take seven
seven
minutes,
minutes.
and
Okay, so
then
everybody
the
that's listening,
longest
this is a
part.
quick cooking recipe.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. The longest part is rolling them all out. So when you do, I'm just using 3 pounds of ricotta, for example.
Hmm.
You'll get about 6.5 pounds out of 3 pounds. So once you add the flour and you add everything into it,
Okay.
so when you roll them out, that's what takes the longest. But you can cook them fresh. So with the girl that wanted them, she called early enough in the morning. We did it, put them in the freezer. By the time she got there, they were ready to go.
And you could just drop them in the water and
Yeah,
So you
and
could roll them and just
yep,
drop them right in the water, or you roll them out and throw them in the freezer,
freezer,
let them set, and
and then you could sell them. So we'll sell them by the bag sometimes too.
okay. But if you were
Or
making these at home, right? So not everybody would have a need for like 6 pounds of homemade gnocchi. You
no,
could freeze them, like freeze what you're not going to use, and then you just cook them from frozen, or do you need to thaw them?
you can cook it from frozen.
Just cook them right from frozen.
That's normally what people do.
Hmm.
they don't take long to, as soon as they
No,
float,
they're
they're ready.
five
Yeah.
minutes, roaring boil, 5 minutes, and I mean they're pretty much done.
Okay,
It's
so
cool. You
this,
could do them
think
with
about it and it sounds
sauce.
like it's so complicated and it's going to be like this big cumbersome project. But if I can do it if you can do it, let me rephrase that. If you can do it in 7 minutes, that would probably take me at least 15, 20. I'm figuring double. Um, yeah, that would be a great, like, easy Sunday dinner that you can just, or I mean,
Oh,
you could even do that on the weekdays.
what's nice about it, and I mean we'll do it with my kids. Uh, we'll roll them out here at the house.
Yeah.
So we have a big island here, and we just it's a nice Sunday thing. You can incorporate your family with it,
Yeah.
and let the kids roll it out.
Yeah, I remember doing that when I was a kid. Like, my grandmother would make them and she'd sit and she'd cut them and like chop, chop, chop. She would go so fast. Like everything she did was so fast. And then we would roll them on the fork, on the back of the fork to get the ridges on them.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
you can do it that way. So when I was a kid, we would put a little dimple in the top.
Oh, okay.
And then now, like at the restaurant, we don't do that. I just cut them, and however they looked. But for the most part,
That's
for
how
the
you get it
most
down to
part,
7 minutes. Nothing fancy.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
There's no razzle dazzle. They taste the same.
yeah. Deanna's a
No razzle
creative
dazzle.
genius.
Yeah.
She's a creative genius. She'll just say, "Well, what could you make for them?" And then if I have the gnocchis, then she'll put together like something from like with the bread bowl that we're doing this
Okay.
coming week. Uh, that's one thing that we started last year, and now we're going to carry it over to this year. But a
Oh,
lot of things that she'll come up with, I just cook it. I just make it, whatever she tells me what to do.
good man. You just do what you're told.
It's
Someone been
a lot
doing
of
it.
training, but
Yeah,
we got them.
yeah.
So
And
we
it's
are,
cool
oh, go ahead.
because you could put them like in, not only sauce and then, make them, have them for your sauce, save them, and then make like maybe like a chicken and gnocchi soup or,
Mhm.
just do different things with them.
Yeah.
I've been seeing these fried gnocchis lately on the,
Mm.
yeah,
So just
Yeah,
deep fried?
yeah.
that's it.
And then you put like just sprinkle some parm cheese and a little bit of like you dip them in the sauce.
God, that sounds heavenly.
Yeah.
That sounds heavenly. That really, really does.
Right, because they just get that nice little like soft, oh. And
Yeah, like melt in your mouth. I know we were talking about
Mhm.
the gnocchi in the bread bowl before we went live, and my son was here, and he's been obsessed with gnocchi since he was a little kid. And I would just do it in like a garlic butter sauce with broccoli, and I swear the kid would eat
Yep.
pounds and pounds of them if I made them that way. And he was yelling to me from the kitchen just before. He's like, and I still would eat pounds of them, but I think he would love the bread bowl in a bread bowl. I mean, that just takes it to a whole other level. That's just a
That's
carb
Yeah.
lover's dream.
that's it. That's it.
So how
But
do you prepare it in the bread bowl? Like what, like I'm assuming you're not just dumping a bread bowl full of gnocchis. I'm sure there's a sauce.
so what we do is we'll take it's a little round it's like they call it an Italian roll, but or a soup or they can call it a soup bread. But
Okay.
we cut the top off of it. We pull all the meat of the bread out,
Hmm.
and then we put that on the side and we'll toast that. And then we put a
So we'll
little bit
make
of
it like a
sauce.
garlic bread almost on the side then. Like we'll kind of drizzle that and I'll throw some like, salt, pepper, garlic on it and
Mm.
toast that up. You
Mm.
always gotta level up, you
Yeah,
can't just
Yep.
agreed.
And
Take
then
it
we
to the
put
next.
there's a lot
yeah.
of sauce. There's a lot of sauce. We've been doing it with vodka sauce. I mean, we
Oh,
could do it with vodka, we could do it red, but people love our vodka sauce, so we kind of
okay.
stick to it.
Okay.
And we'll put them in there. It's loaded with cheese. It's just cheese on
Yeah.
bread, and
I mean,
it's delicious.
there's nothing wrong with that in my book. Cheese on
No,
cheese on
That's
cheese.
no,
that's
we
a good day.
we throw
Yeah,
it in the
right?
oven. We
Melt
toast a
some
bun.
parm on there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Perfect.
yep. We toast it in the bun. We toast the whole bun in the oven, and
With the
we'll melt the
gnocchi in
cheese.
it.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
and it's
I'm
very
sold.
good.
I'm sold.
Yeah.
I'll have to
They're
tell my
good.
husband to stop by on his way home from work and pick me up one
Yeah.
too.
Yep, yep. I'm sure he won't mind.
No, no, absolutely not. That's awesome. So, okay, so can we talk a little bit about sauces and like how to serve gnocchi? Because I mean, like obviously you could do it with like a marinara sauce, and you mentioned vodka sauce, but like what are some other ways that, our listeners, if they were going to make gnocchi, can jazz it up or take it to the next level?
Tyler?
Just, I mean, dealer's choice, whatever, everybody has their favorite sauce that they like to go to, like you were saying with the butter and garlic. Like that sounds even delish with the fresh broccoli and stuff in it. I
Mhm.
would love to try that a day. And like I've been on an Alfredo kick lately.
Oh
I
yeah.
I got Alfredo last night. Like you can't go wrong with it.
So cheese on cheese again.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Cheese on bread on cheese.
Yeah.
Yes. We should
and
get it on a t-shirt.
There
and
you
the
go.
I mean, butter and garlic is always a good choice. Some kids don't eat sauce. My daughter, she goes back and forth. She likes vodka sauce one day, butter and garlic sauce the next. She'll like things sometimes just a little plain. But like you said with broccoli before,
Hmm.
that's great. You can mix the gnocchis in with that. I mean, they're good with any sauce. Some people do, they do butternut squash raviolis. Well, you can do the
Yeah.
same thing with an gnocchi and then make a sweet sauce for them. So there's all different ways to go about it. I guess it's just how your flavor, but any sauce that you can come up with. I like spicy sauce, so like, well, I'll put sausage in there,
Oh, that would
hot
be good.
sausage, and I like a lot of meat. So I mean,
Like a Fra
meatballs are always a
Diavolo
great.
or something where it's a
Yeah,
little like,
you can use it for anything. Some people don't like them. Some people have had them and they don't have flavor. So when
mhm.
we do ours, we do them a little bit different. I put seasonings in the dough so
Okay.
that the gnocchi itself already has a flavor. It's not just doesn't just taste like a ball of cheese.
Right. And I talked about that in a previous episode. So it's one of the questions I get asked all the time, or that people always bring up when they're talking to me is like, oh, my food doesn't taste good. So I did a whole episode on the power of seasoning your food because most people are like,
That's
well, I'm just
that's
not
her.
putting any salt. Like I'm trying to cut down on my salt, so I don't put salt in my food. I'm like, but you need to salt your food.
Yeah.
That's not the salt you
She
need to stay away from.
she
It's
yells
the
at me all the
processed
time
food
for
salt.
salt. Yep.
I listened to that episode and I like to cook. I could cook. I could do fun things. I love putting different things together. And but like I've been getting into more of like the science of food. So
Mhm.
that one episode that you did on like the seasonings and like, because then I'm like, well, Dave, because I was stuck, it was around Christmas time when I listened to it, and I was stuck in traffic up in Dixon City. So it was like, and I like just blew through like the first couple of your
Oh,
episodes. So I came back, I'm like, well, Dave, you got to do this. And this is why. And like, so, but I really liked that episode.
oh, that was the
But
first person that
no,
ever told me they binged one of my
Yeah,
shows. Thank you.
yeah. Yeah, so it was, well, yeah, I liked it. And it was interesting. And it keeps you entertained, and you learn something too.
But I think
Like
people
I said,
forget about that, like just to season like the dough of of whatever it is
yeah.
they're making. And you have to season the pasta water, like every single layer you would season. So yeah, I think that would add a lot of flavor. Going back to the sauces, I'll never forget, I was at an event. This was years ago, maybe like 12, 15 years ago. And it was like butternut squash. When you said butternut squash, it reminded me. No, it was pumpkin ravioli in a Frangelico cream sauce. So it was a very light cream sauce. Like it wasn't thick, it was nice and thin, but they used Frangelico for the sweetness. I went right out to the liquor store to buy Frangelico because I'm like, I need this in my life. It was
yeah,
so good. Of course, I haven't made it since then, but when you said that, I'm like, oh my gosh, that would be so good.
Great. It's great for dessert. Like
Yeah.
not for a dessert, but a more lighter meal if you're gonna have it. And some
Yeah.
people do serve. They'll do raviolis like that with actually for a dessert. They'll make them with like a raspberry sauce, like
That would be
which
good.
is like
Ravioli with raspberry sauce?
yeah. Yeah, a lady that worked for me years ago, Kathy Tagliaferra, she had Casa de Mamas down in Scranton, up on Bundy Street, which isn't there no more. But she worked for me when I first opened up, and I didn't know, I'm not a chef. I didn't know much about the business, the
Hmm.
inner workings of cooking. Like I knew how to make a cheesesteak, knew how to make some pizza, Jim's favorite hot wing
The
hoagie,
hot wing
you know.
hoagie.
But that's like that was my boundaries really. I knew how to make gnocchis, but I never really made them to sell. And she came in and she was well versed in it, and she made homemade raviolis with some type of raspberry cream sauce. And we sold them for dessert, and they were unbelievable.
You know what though? That makes complete sense because when you think about like a cheesecake, especially an Italian cheesecake made with a lot of times it's made with ricotta cheese and you
Yep,
pair that with, like a strawberry compote or like any kind of fruit topping, that makes total sense.
yep.
I would have never thought to do that.
And it's warm. It's warm like
Yeah.
you serve it warm. So
So you
it's
need
nice.
dessert gnocchi now.
yeah.
Got to work on
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Oh,
A little bit of cinnamon. And I'm
yeah,
addicted to Saigon cinnamon. I think it has such a different flavor. Like,
yeah,
mm-mm-mm.
That's what Deanna keeps talking about, learning the background of the cooking part of it.
Well,
She wants to know the inner workings of all the seasonings. She'll yell at me for not enough salt, or she'll go and she'll redo everything over. I'll already have stuff in there and she'll redo it, but I can't complain because it always comes out better than it
no,
was.
that's good. And some of the best, I think, discoveries are made by accident and just playing around. I got a book for Christmas that I absolutely love that you might like too. It's called Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat. And it basically explains like the different components of flavor profiles. Like you need salt, you need fat, you need acid, and then heat. And it really breaks that all down. So it's a great book. I highly recommend it.
yeah.
But
Definitely would love that, because that's again, and I'm always trying to do like learn different. Like David, so, and I mean this in the most respectful way. Like he's very basic with his taste. Even when we go out to dinner and stuff like that, he's like the safe, which is, there's nothing wrong with that. He
mhm,
just likes, I like the crazy weird things that like you wouldn't think
yeah.
would even go together. Like I got a cocktail the other night, there was beet and carrot in it, and you couldn't tell. It was delicious, like
Yeah.
tasted like juicy juice. But so I always just like to, just try to research and try new things and
Hmm.
different seasonings and what could we mix. And Like I like putting things together that you normally wouldn't think. Like last week we did a feature with like I did a turkey cranberry wrap.
Mm,
And
Yeah.
like I love like the sweetness with the either chickens or turkey and I
right.
put a raspberry drizzle on it, but then I
Mm,
threw a little blue cheese on there and I did it because the week prior there's stuff just sitting around on the cutting board. I had these dried cranberries. You take a little piece of cheese and make yourself little roll-ups. And so I'm just, I'm like, oh my God, this is so good. I made myself a wrap to take home. Well, then the next week it was a feature. So I come up with a lot of things on accident.
Yeah.
that's
My
awesome.
my flavor palette isn't the best. I don't like a lot of not I can't even say I don't like a lot of stuff. I won't try a lot of stuff. I don't know if it's
Mhm.
a texture thing or whatever. I just started eating like I'll eat salmon and I eat tuna. That's the only fish I'll eat.
Right.
I don't eat any
Like the
shellfish,
ahi tuna.
like
Don't
tuna
come at them
steak.
with like a
Yeah.
tuna mouth.
Love tuna steak. I mean, and we make that. That's something that we make at the restaurant. And we do like a tuna carpaccio, but we instead of serving it raw, we sear it on each side, and then we slice it very thin, and we put it over a salad with like
Oh,
balsamic and provolone
That
and
sounds great.
roasted red peppers. But something like that, I'll eat. It's a very safe thing for me because it's not. I know
Yeah.
it's not fishy, but and salmon is one of those things that you either love it or you hate it. But I do like
Right.
salmon because it's like thick. It's thick like a steak. But I'm not really one to try. Like last night, she got calamari, and I wouldn't try. I wouldn't even try calamari, even
Oh,
though it's fried and you
yeah.
know,
it's so basic. There's nothing to it. But
I
we
won't even try it.
we were at dinner the one night. I decided carrots. Ma'am, carrots, an all-American, just basic staple vegetable. And I'm like, and they were done in this like brown sugar glaze. I'm like, just try them. They're so good. They were cooked perfectly. And like, how you like the kids take like the smallest
Yeah.
little bite. Like I did get him. He's, breaking a little bit and, it didn't bite him or anything. And he enjoyed it and he didn't die after. And
Right.
yeah, it was,
Yep.
so he's learning.
I bought
But
multicolored carrots a couple weeks ago for dinner. Like, the purple, the white, the orange, and
yeah.
yellow. Like, you get the bag of the multicolored. And I made them for dinner. And my husband's like, what the heck is this? Why couldn't you just use orange carrots? What are these other colors? What do they taste like? What? And I'm like, just knock it off and eat them. They taste like carrots. They're just a different color.
So
Just
it
knock it
spirals
off.
them right out.
But it was
Yep.
the same thing. Like he has to do the little bite. And I prepared them the same way that like because he likes them roasted with butter and garlic. Like that's how I make the carrot. And he will devour an entire bag of carrots made that way. But this one he takes like the littlest tiniest bite to make sure it doesn't taste like a beet or something.
Right. It
Yeah.
beets, but I've been on a kick with that. I can't get them to try a beet. And
Oh,
they're
they
so
my guys won't eat them. I
delish.
love them. I will eat them
Yeah.
prepared any which way. My guys, nope. So
And
it's hard with the
that's
picky eaters.
Add a little salt and you're golden.
but
Yeah.
that's
Put
one of
them
the
in the
reasons.
gnocchi.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons, or I should say, that's how I became so good at making pastas. Because at one point in my life, I think that's all I ate.
Pasta.
Pasta. Pasta with something, whether it was chicken or throw
Yeah.
some beef in there or whatever. But I mean, I was on a kick when I was younger, and that was my mother had to have sauce all the time. And now my kids are more diverse. They'll eat a lot more than I ate, but I have to make sauce every week for them, and they will not eat a jar of sauce. And I don't even care if my sauce isn't. Sometimes I can cook it longer and I can make it better, but sometimes I make it and it's just thrown together quick, and I mean
Yeah.
it'll still be good. But my son will not eat jarred sauce.
Hmm.
He can tell the difference between it. He
Yeah.
just can't stand it.
That's funny.
And that's how I became so diverse in making pastas, and I can make just about every one of them.
Yeah. My grandmother used to she was of the school of thought that if the pasta was a different shape, it constituted a different meal every night. So it could be the same pasta and sauce, but if you have rigatoni one night, spaghetti the next night, ravioli, like that would be three different meals. That would not be wrong to her to have it three nights in a row as long as they were different shaped.
Right.
But it was the
That's
same thing. Like she would just make her own, and it was old school. It was like broom handle rolling out the pasta dough, not,
Oh yeah.
not a fancy like pasta maker.
No,
right.
when I was younger, we didn't have. So every Sunday we'd go to my aunt Catherine's, and she was older then, but she was she was the type of person that wanted her whole family in the house, and the house was 6 feet
Yeah.
by 6 feet. And
You're on
everybody
top of
has
each other.
sons. The kids would be eating in the kitchen. You started as a kid eating in the kitchen, then you made it into the hallway on the other
Yeah.
side, and then you finally made it to the dining room table as you got older.
Yeah.
But that's how I started really making the pasta. And every week we would go there. And I hated it as a kid. Like I used to beg my mother, "Mom, do we have to go to Grandma and Aunt Catherine's on Saturday, on Sunday?" And she every month or every week she made me go there. And then as you get older, then by the time I was in my 20s, I would love to go there because then
Yeah.
I was older. I sat at the dining room table at that point, and everybody else, they were to my grandmother's hands. She had arthritis, so she couldn't do the
Yeah.
dough. So like I would do the dough, but they never had a mixer. They never had. You rolled everything by hand. They
Mm-mm.
would make capolettis,
Mm-hmm.
and they at one point they used to do when they were younger. They used to do things for weddings. So they would do Italian wedding cookies, and they used to do homemade cannolis. So they took the broom handles,
Mm-hmm.
and then you would boil them off. You would boil them, and they would smooth them out, and then boil them again, and then you would fry it. That's how you would make the shell. So they would make the dough for the shell, and then they wrap the shell around it, and you pinch it, and then
Yep.
you drop it in the fryer, and then when you pull it out, you could slide the dowel like it was like a dowel, but you would slide it right out.
Yeah.
But they
That's
used to do everything. Everything
that's
was
the
from start
best.
to finish.
That's the best. My grandmother had like the second kitchen in the basement where they would, they have the big weekends where they're making the sauce or make it, like whatever it was they were making, stuffing sausage or making pasta, whatever it was. But there was like the whole second basement going on. And I don't know if
Yep.
you listen to the comedian Sebastian Maniscalco, but he does this like whole bit on his grandma with the second kitchen in the basement.
Yeah.
And I'd listen to that and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I remember being a little kid and being down in that basement with making the
And
sauce and helping,
And
but I wasn't really helping. I was probably just in the way because I was little.
and you don't realize it, but like, and then when you get older, you appreciate
Yeah.
that. And looking back, and it's something that I feel like is lost now and
Hmm.
with a lot of families. And which that's why we like I said, some days we still enjoy cooking and getting the
Yeah.
kids in on it. And it's something that they don't really,
you got to
they
incorporate.
just do it. And then, but later on down the road, they'll remember and they'll appreciate
Yeah.
and, there'll be a story to tell.
We'll
Yeah.
start making we'll start making cookies, and then they'll help in the beginning, and then they fall off.
Oh
Then
yeah.
they're gone, and we're rolling out cookies. I'll
I'll
have cookies
never
all over.
forget the one Christmas. Now, I tend to be one of these people that I start big projects late at night. So at this point, I was still living at home. It was before I was married. I was going to make Christmas cookies. So I fished out all the recipes from my mom's recipe box and I was going to make my grandma's Italian wedding cookies. And it was like 9 o'clock at night when I started this project. And I start going and measure out the 10 cups of flour and the anisette, like all this stuff. Do you know how many cookies 10 cups of flour makes? I didn't. It was like 12:30 and I felt like I was still rolling out these cookies and because you have to do them in the snake and then twirl them and then they
Yep.
all had to be frosted and it was a fiasco. But that was the type of recipe and her cups were probably just like a coffee cup, not like a 1 cup measuring cup.
Right. There was no real legitimate measuring
No,
then.
Well,
no.
as you say that, I'm thinking because in the beginning, when I have this little cup, right,
Yeah,
and now it is about 8 ounce. It's about 8 ounces of flour, so it's about 8 ounce. A
yeah,
cup, 1 cup. But when I started making gnocchis, I never had a measuring cup because, like, I had my front. It was like my house. I never needed a measuring cup for anything. And then I started using one of these small cups, and I've been using one ever since. So
yeah,
that's my measuring cup. So when I tell people a cup, I
yeah,
gotta say it's kind of a cup. So you put four in, and then see if you need a fifth one. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't, and it also depends when you make the ricotta. If the ricotta is real wet,
how wet it is.
so
Yeah.
I use a super fine, so it's always got a little bit of water in it.
Mm-hmm.
So I strain it out before I do it.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the difference. So there's different ricotta. There's the falbo. There's you
Right.
know polio. I think polio makes
Yeah,
ricotta.
Galbani, I think, makes one.
Yeah,
That's my new
and
favorite one. I used to be
the
all
one that
Falbo, but now I like Galbani.
so I use a grande
Okay.
super fina, and it's hard to get. now I get it from a place called Orlando's, and it's instead of a 2-pounder, it's a 3-pound. It's a 3-pounder.
Hmm. So a nice
So,
big one.
oh yeah, and I found it to be the best flavoring, the
Yeah.
best use of it.
And we make our cannolis with it as
I
well.
also make the cannoli filling with it too.
Yeah.
Again, easy peasy.
And some of them have, and that one's probably one that has that like you go to an Italian restaurant and they have the cheese, the ricotta cheese has such a creamy, fine texture. And it's like you can't find that in the grocery store. Like I have
Yeah.
tried. I have tried so many of them to try to replicate that texture.
Yep.
And I've often thought, can I just put it through the food processor and just pulse it a couple of times to get it like that?
Well, now what you can do, and we do it for our Italian antipasto platters, is we whip it. So you can put it in a mixer
Yep.
and whip it.
Okay.
We do it with honey. And then I do seasonings. And then Deanna came up with a fabulous idea, which is everything bagels, toast it,
Hmm.
but she cuts them first, so they're little pieces. So, and then she'll toast them in the oven.
Hmm.
And when you take them out, you use that to scoop the
Mm.
ricotta, the whipped ricotta.
Yeah, that would be delicious.
Instead of doing like little pieces of bread,
Yeah.
that's she uses everything bagels.
That would be delicious because that would have that salty, sweet
Oh my God,
juxtaposition
so
there.
good,
Oh, that would be amazing.
so good.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah, the whipped
it's
ricotta's.
and
But
you know like go
that's
ahead.
how you can do it. Like even if you get one from the supermarket, if you whip it before you use it,
Okay.
that'll that'll kind of soften it up a little bit more. Then it won't be so thick.
Yeah.
But like this super fina, when you I'll open this one. So it's like it's not gritty.
Okay.
So even when like it's like a blob. That's all it is.
Yeah, that's
So
nice.
it
I
does
can see
take a
that
little
pulling
bit
away from
more.
the sides.
It takes a little bit more flour when you're making like when we're making the ricotta and gnocchis
Hmm.
to get it to come together. But the flour doesn't it doesn't throw it off.
Okay.
It makes it right. So some pastas, if you put too much flour, it'll make it real hard or make it
Right.
like,
Dense.
yeah. So
Yeah.
this one here, the more flour is kind of better. So
Okay.
as soon as it stops coming together and as soon as it's my the way that they taught me was if you can touch it and it doesn't stick to your finger, it's done.
Okay. That's
So
a good rule of thumb.
like the dough, like this dough here,
Okay.
like you can touch it and you
Okay.
just
Yeah, and it's not coming off on your finger at all.
nope.
Hmm. So I find too, like people are often like I'll get comments on my recipes and stuff. So if I said use like a whole milk ricotta, they'll be like, "Oh, I used the fat free or the 1% or whatever." And mine didn't turn out as good. And I think sometimes when you make those ingredient substitutions, some things are good. Some recipes you can swap in and out, for dietary restrictions, whatever. But certain ones, I think you have to keep the fat in there and in order to keep the texture right.
Yeah, there's off topic here. That's like our Texas wiener sauce.
Mm-hmm.
We have to leave a little bit of the grease and the oil from the meats
Yep.
in it because if not, when like when we put it in our steam table, it'll deplete and it'll dry out and it tastes terrible.
Yep.
So it's kind of like this. It's kind of the same thing. You don't want to change too
No.
much on it.
Fat equals flavor. I learned that a long time
Yeah.
ago on a beef tour where I toured some cattle farms, and that was the one thing that the ranchers had said is like fat equals flavor. And
Yeah.
you can take some, like obviously you're cutting off the big chunks, but you need some of that fat left in there to keep your food
Like
at the right texture and consistency.
my justification is okay, we're already making pasta. This isn't this isn't carb conscious day, you
Yeah.
know. So we might as well just do it right, enjoy it. And then, the rest of the week, that's where, you have a salad for dinner. And,
Right.
it's about balance. You
Yeah.
like instead of, trying to substitute. And I mean, and people like you said, dietary restrictions and stuff is something different, but you gotta go all in.
Sometimes you do. I agree. You just have to go all in on whatever it
Yeah.
is you're doing and enjoy it for what it is.
Yeah.
My mom would always do that. So she was one for substitutions. And I
Hmm.
don't know if it was because things were cheaper to buy or whatever, but she never, if she didn't have whole milk, she'd use 1% or 2%, or sometimes she'd be on a kick. She wasn't drinking the whole milk, she'd be drinking 2%. But it's totally different when you go to
Yeah.
make something with a 2% milk to
Yeah.
where you're using whole milk.
I learned
It's
that
totally
years
different.
ago making pancakes of all things.
Yeah.
I used my grandmother's pancake recipe, and we usually have 1% in our house. So I was making it with 1%. They were okay. And then the one time I had half and half left over from a party, and I made the pancakes with the half and half. Oh my God, it took them to a whole new level. And I'm like, when I started digging into it, I'm like, it's because of the fat. They need that fat in order to do their thing and become like the like that pancake magic to happen. You
Well,
can't take it all
I
out.
screwed up the other day. I didn't have milk here. So I had a bunch of kids here.
Wait, this is recorded. Dave doesn't make mistakes, and he just said it, so you might have to edit that out.
I
No, we're
had a
gonna
bunch
keep
of
it.
Yeah.
I had a bunch of kids here, and they always want me to make pancakes or French toast, or I make waffles or whatever. I was
Good
So I
luck.
did this twice actually. So once I did it with pancakes and I used heavy cream. Heavy cream does not work in pancakes, and it definitely doesn't work in waffles.
Oh,
So the waffles were the worst waffle.
They
I
didn't
mean,
even come
they
together. It
didn't even
was
come together.
sick. He's like, oh, the waffle maker must be broken or something. It was because it wasn't.
It would not work.
so
Where
half and half is as far as you can go with the fat
half
Yeah,
and
content
half
for
will
you
that.
work.
gotta draw the line.
Half and half will work. Heavy cream will not work.
Or
And
take
he's
half heavy cream, half milk.
yeah.
Make your own half and
Yeah,
half.
And I'm
yeah,
sitting there like in the car. I'm like, I have the phone.
yeah.
I'm like, Dave's screwing up.
We're gonna
I was
record
better
this
off
for
using
everybody.
water than using heavy cream.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's funny when you talk about that and like with substitutions and you sometimes I've always said too, that's how good things happen. Trying different substitutions, you might find something that really does work, but then sometimes like there's some flops. And we all have them, no matter how long you've been cooking. I mean, I challenge anybody to say they haven't messed up ever and made something that they can't serve. I mean, even Gordon Ramsay has things he can't serve to his family.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Yeah. I've had my fair share.
We like to dabble around and try different recipes.
Yeah.
I've been on a pizza dough kick now because what we're thinking about doing in the restaurant is getting rid of the coffee. Not totally, but getting rid of we have a big area where we have our coffee and all our flavors and everything. And I've been messing around with pizza dough because we want to put a brick oven in to do 10-inch personal pan pizzas.
Hmm.
But that's a
That's science.
that's science. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm close. Like the last pizza that I make it do this once a week. And last week I did it and I finally got the dough the right way, like the air, letting it
Yeah.
sit. Like if I let it, you have to let it sit pretty much 24 hours. Where I was making it and I was letting it sit for maybe 2 or 3 hours, and
Right.
it just wasn't rising enough to where when you push it back down, that the air just kind of stays in there, but it doesn't.
Uh-huh.
So now I'm figuring that's my mission now is to learn how to. And once you learn how to make dough, you can just keep kind of twisting it and turning it. But there's even ways when you're making it, when you add the oil, what kind of oil you use.
Hmm.
Some people use cold water, some people use warm water, some people use purified water, some people want spring water. So all these little things react different to the yeast.
Hmm.
So now I tried one yeast. It was a Fleischmann's yeast, and then I got the rapid yeast, which I'm liking better. But I'm starting to try to figure that part of it out, which is like intense. And you can look at all the pizza recipes and people make them, and I measured them out, and I bring the scale up from the restaurant, and I'm weighing the flour, and I'm weighing the water, and I'm weighing the salt, and I'm weighing everything that goes in it, and it's not coming out. It doesn't come out the same. So
Mm.
there's a happy medium on the time and what the actual temperature of the water is, but I haven't dabbled that far into exactly where it is. I'm just trying to get it to where I like it, and then I'll work
Yeah.
from there. But it gets better every time.
That's
But
awesome. And
that's
trial
one
and
thing
error.
that you can't substitute. Like you cannot substitute something. You got to use whatever ingredients you use. Like I'm using 00 flour, so that's what I've been working with, and that's what I plan on using for the pizza dough.
Hmm.
Some people use all-purpose flour, some people use bread flour. So there's different things. I've been trying with the double zero because I
Hmm.
hear that that's the best. It's definitely one of the more expensive flours to use, but it's coming together, and it seems like I'm onto it. So
Yeah,
now it's
like
just
that's always scared. I don't know why. And like this is like one of the things I'll always admit. Like I am scared to death of yeast. Like when I have to feed my food, like that just scares me that there's like living organisms in there doing things. And I feel like I go too fast when I cook and I'm not precise. So I'm not good when it comes to baking. I'm not as good when it comes to baking and stuff that like pizza dough that requires precision and patience because I have neither of those two skills. I'm not precise, I don't have patience, but I love the science behind cooking. And I think that that is so awesome to know that different ingredients put together in different ways at different times can yield very different results. And to me, that's fascinating. And it's just like a giant like chemistry experiment.
well, that's what Deanna's been talking about is the science behind it. And she listened
Hmm.
to one of your episodes, and that's where she really,
Like, listen, I relate to everything. I'm pure chaos in the kitchen. You want me to measure and I try like baking, not my forte. And I tried a little bit because we like to get like fresh pastries and stuff. And I'm like, I'm just gonna make them. It's fine. No, I'm not gonna make them because I can't. Like, I'm like, Dave, just take these home because they're not even that good.
Yeah.
Like, so I kind of gave up. So he is good with the measuring and I like one thing that I've really been like excelling, like my soups are phenomenal. People love them. They've been coming out great. The other day, Dave's like, well, somebody wants a recipe. I'm like, I have no idea. I just walk around. I'm like, well, this looks good. And I try it. And then, I see it. And then I'm like, well, maybe I should add a little of this. Like I have no rhyme or reason. I just have an idea and I just go with it. But they're great. And that's what I enjoy about cooking. Like, I try not to go too heavy. One thing that I try to follow is you could always add more. So I try not to like go crazy and add a bunch of
Yeah.
stuff. And I like to get a little base and then,
Yeah.
build off of that because again, like I said, I'm chaos in the kitchen. And, now because when we're cooking in the restaurant, it's different than cooking home when you have this like cute little pot. And now he gives me this big thing, this big, and I'm just dumping things in there. So
Multiply it
that,
by 15 and then, make
yeah,
it that way. Yeah.
yeah.
well,
Okay. So a big handful, like
she
but
got very good at making soups. We started last year, and I mean, I used to make the soups last year, but I would make them like sporadically. Like I wouldn't always have a soup. We always have capilettis. That's a staple. But
Hmm.
then chicken noodle soup. I have I have that down pat. Great recipe.
Yeah.
The best part about it is you don't have to cook the chicken yourself. Go to Sam's Club for $5. You buy one of those Cornish hens, and that's it. I swear by them. They are
Yep.
the best thing possible if you're making chicken noodle soup. I, cheap, great, good
Yep.
soup. When we give a chicken noodle soup, I mean, you got it. It's hearty. People are like never complaining that there's not enough of anything in it. So
Right.
that's one of my strong points, which is super easy to do. But she does like all the cream soups
Hmm.
where I would do the cream, and then my whole thing is, well, if it's not creamy enough, add cheese. So I would add
just a
cheese,
piece
We're
of cheese.
back to
I'm like,
cheese.
add cheese.
yeah.
That's
So I'm
it.
like, well, no, I'm gonna thicken it up nice. And
Yeah.
I really, put
Yeah.
my oomph in it. And I mean, the soups were good, but
Yeah.
I like to,
Now that and then she made the soup that the one woman was asking for was the stuffed pepper soup.
Oh
that's
yeah.
super
That's
good.
that's a popular recipe on my site.
Oh, so good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
So good.
and people, they just listen, people, there's soup people in the world and they love it. And, you go places and you get these soups. Like I had a conversation with, customers the other day and they're like, there's so much. It was the chicken soup. They're like, it's loaded. And I'm like, well, like carrots, let's get real. They're not that expensive. Like we
Hmm.
don't have to be greedy with them. But some places are. You get like two little pieces and it
Yeah.
like,
That's happened
and
to
it
me a
makes a
couple of times.
difference.
I'm a soup
Yeah.
orderer. Like usually if we're, I don't know, if the boys are getting pizza, like I'll be like, oh, just get me soup and a salad, like depending on what they have, what kind of soup they have. But a couple of
Right.
times I've gotten it was just, broth with very little anything in it. But when you like, if I make soup for you, you are getting mostly stuff and a little bit of broth.
Broth.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sometimes
sure.
they're worried that there's not enough broth. Like,
Yeah.
but some people it's a meal and vegetables and they're good for you. And
Yeah.
like I put up a video, like as our Facebook, I'm constantly posting and I'm trying to
Yeah.
make TikToks and like when I like it, like I try to give a personality. Like I feel like and there's nothing wrong with it. A lot of places they're very professional
Yeah.
and they're very, this looks nice and like I'm just chaos and I'm fun and we like to interact and
Hmm.
I make jokes on there. So like I'm always just posting different things, but I posted like the video of the soup and I just stirred the pot and you just see everything
Yeah.
come up. Like, but it
That's
does, it makes
awesome.
a difference and people appreciate it. Like we as a business, like it's people come in and it's we get new faces for sure, but we get a lot of like repeated people come in every day, sometimes, sometimes twice a day
Hmm.
or,
Yeah.
2 or 3 times a week. And so they become your friends and we get to know them and we talk. And so
Yeah.
it's fun. We don't have that like, professional and you're a customer and a consumer and I'm just, like
Yeah.
I'll just come out saying something crazy. I'll be like, here, try this because I don't know. And
Yeah.
Jim was in the one day and I was making chili and we had a bunch of wraps left over and I was deep frying the wraps.
Yeah.
And then like I was like, well, try that. And then I was putting sugar on them and I'm like, well, try it this way. Like I just, you make them part of the process. But
Yeah.
that's,
He
it
always says that,
works.
like when he goes in there, he gets like stickers on his food, and it's a very interactive dining experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's fun. Oh my God, my stickers. I have tons and they're nonsense little stickers and I have, cute little puppies to dumpster fire. If you come in and you're saying you're having a crappy day, well, guess what? You're getting a dumpster fire on your coffee because not every day is awesome, but it's gonna make you smile. And
Yeah.
but people appreciate
I
that. Like
do.
when I heard a story she's like, this one girl was telling somebody, I had this awful day and I went in and they put sprinkles on my coffee and all these wild stickers. And like, she's like, I went in my car and I cried, like, just
Aw.
because it just made me just feel good. And so I like, it's fun. And like I said, I like to go off the cuff and not just be like, well, this was it. And, have a
Yeah.
great day. Like, that's boring. There's no personality in that. So,
No, that's awesome.
Now,
And it shows, I think it shows in your food. And I think that's one of the things like I think people can taste in food, right? It's not an actual ingredient, but when you put love and care and passion into what you're doing, it comes
yeah.
out in the end. And like people can feel that.
Well, that's what Deanna says all the time. She's got posters hanging in the kitchen. This kitchen's for dancing and a disco
disco ball and
ball.
a small karaoke machine for Friday nights.
Yeah.
But and I say it all the time, like, and it's funny because we're crazy, like, and you get a show sometimes, truly, because if we're like in disagreements about something, like, but I'm like, we can't be in a bad mood because it goes into the food,
Right.
like. I'm
I
like, your
agree with
energy
that.
it transfers, and it sounds like hippy dippy why, but it's true.
No,
Like
it
if
is true.
you're or even if I am having a crappy day, like I'll just go back there like a nice Saturday morning and I'm just making my eggs for people. And like it just zone out and then, it makes you feel better and hopefully
Yeah.
it transfers on to the next.
I've
What
always said that like cooking always makes me feel calm. So if I'm stressed out and frustrated, so like not to go deep, but like several years ago there was an incident that happened in our area and it involved a sniper. So you'll know what I'm talking about. And my husband's in law enforcement and it was a very stressful time. And all I could do to channel the energy I was, because I was pacing, like I didn't sleep at all that night because it was like literally going down. It all started around 11 o'clock midnight. So like I didn't sleep at all that night. I'm pacing. By the morning, I was up making soups. I had like four things going on the stove. It was the only way I could channel myself and calm myself down and kind of try to bring some peace and organization to what was going on emotionally. And for
Yeah.
me, it really helped. But our freezer was full after that because I couldn't stop.
That's good. Something positive came
Yeah.
out.
So
And
like
it
for
and it does. It truly what you just because you're refocused.
yeah.
You're not focused on the out, you're just at the task at hand and
So make the
you know,
gnocchi, roll it out, feel the dough squishing between your fingers
yeah.
Yep.
and get the
You always have to
flour
have
up to
good
your
tunes.
elbow.
Yep.
You always have to have good music on.
Yes. Make a
And
mess, put the music
yeah,
on and have fun.
That's it.
yeah.
I make a great mess. I don't like to clean it up, but I make a great
No, I
mess.
don't like
I call them little fires everywhere
to.
because we have a big kitchen and it's like a big circle between the line and the dish. And if you could tell Dave was here because there's a little open thing here. There'll be some sprinkles of this that and I just have to go around on top of doing all my do. It's
Yeah.
like having
Yeah.
children in the kitchen, but
Yeah.
I mean it works. We work as chaos as it is, and we've been blessed and we've been so busy and we've been focusing on catering now and catering season is coming up and one of the reasons that's why we moved is because we had our last location
Was
we
so
had one table and
Yeah.
that was with little fires everywhere. That was a lot to handle, but I mean it's fun and we work very well together because we bring like a balance to each other because he's safe and he measures and I'm just chaos and I'll be dancing and singing and he's just looking at me and then the customer. I mean it's just fun. Like we truly enjoy what we do every day.
That's
We
awesome.
yeah.
That's awesome.
I always
So if
my
you're
whole thing. I always say food can go anywhere. Everybody's got to eat. So whether you're doing it here or you're doing it somewhere else, it's not where you're at. It's where you can be, I guess. You can go anywhere to do it.
hmm
That's one thing that I love about what we do.
Yeah. I know. I love like it's such a great thing. And I think it's if everybody learned to cook, I think it would just be like truly amazing because I feel like so much can come out in the kitchen. Like you can work out your frustrations and then, if something turns out good, you feel awesome from that. Like you're nourishing people. It to me it's one of my favorite things. I understand it's not for everybody, but I'm assuming if you're listening to this podcast, you're probably into
We're
to
a little
cooking and food.
interested.
Yeah.
If you're not, great. Get the courage to get out there and just try it. And I've always encouraged that with my son too. Like since he was a little boy and could had to stand on the step stool to reach the counter, I would give him a butter knife like as I'm cooking and a cutting board and just let him like chop the scraps or give him some
Yep.
bread and let him go and feel like he's part of the process. And, now he's at 19, he can hold his own and cook, anything he needs to make, whether it's difficult or easy. And I love that he has that ability now and, can take it further.
One thing that we always look at is where we're at now. We're in a little spot in Jessup, which is an older community, a lot of senior citizens. And these people were used to the building or the people that were there before us. They had Mafalda's Italian specialties.
hmm
So you can go there, you can get homemade raviolis, homemade gnocchis, homemade cappellettis. They made prosciutto, porchetta, um,
Like there's a
lonza.
whole room in the basement. It's so scary now because
Yeah,
the basement's like huge and old and like it's like a
it's
labyrinth.
under the house. It's neat.
And there's a whole like drying room where they had the meats, but it's all
It's
I
all
call it the
hooked.
murder room because it's all like metal walls and there's like little teeny hooks
There's
The
everywhere.
300 of
ceiling.
them.
And then now on top of it's been, vacant for how many years and cobwebs but I mean it's cool and it's history and there's
They
still
Yeah, well,
big
that's where you hang the
missing.
super sot and the Lonza and
they had everything, and so a lot of the older people come in, and now it's kind of spread. We've been there almost a year now. We'll be there a year in May, and it's kind of spread to where if you need a bag of Cappellettis, if you come there, 99% of the time we have them to sell to you.
right.
So we have an older woman that comes in, and she'll drive. She only drives from Troop, but she'll come from Troop, and she'll get 2 bags of Cappellettis, and she'll always ask, "Hey, do you have a bag of gnocchis for me?" And usually
Oh.
we do. We try to keep them in stock. But that's another thing that we love about it is the older people that come in, and then they'll tell you the stories about
hmm
when they used to go there and what they used to get. And then the guy who actually owned the place comes in and he'll
Oh,
tell like he's got
yeah.
stories upon stories. And they lived in the house that's really on the corner, but now that's split up into 3 apartments and we're a separate unit. But it's all linked together, like they're all together. So we enjoy hearing all the old
Yeah.
stories, and we like giving the people something that they can, if they come in and they want sauce or whatever they want. Sometimes they just want to come in, they want to kind of cook, but they don't want to make it
Yeah.
themselves.
Yeah.
They'll come in and they'll get a jar of sauce, they'll get gnocchis, they'll get, if they
That's
want
awesome.
soup. We have a guy that comes in, he wants our capellettis frozen, but then he buys our broth off us. So it's a nice little section of town
Yeah.
where people are used to what they used to have,
And
where
you're keeping
it's
those
sat
older
vacant.
traditions alive for them.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, and
And that was
passing them
another
on.
thing with the gnocchis, because that's what people were used to going there and getting.
Mhm.
And now it's been vacant for almost, I want to say about 9 years before we opened up. So they were kind of shut down. They had nowhere to go. They would go to the supermarket to buy them, and you buy them in the bag. They're just not the same.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, they're cheap, but they're not the same.
Yeah.
And they don't want them. They would buy them in a pinch or whatever. And
Yeah.
then now they can come and they can actually get some. So we'll tell people, hey, if you want to order ahead of time, if you tell us how much we need, we'll make them. And that's one of our big draws for the community. We
Yeah.
don't we don't care. We'll get it. Whatever you want. You want bread, we'll get it.
We'll make it work.
Yep.
Yeah.
We'll make it work. No, that's fantastic. And it's great to be able to have small places like that. And you hear a lot about shopping small and, frequenting small business owners, and that's what you get from that. I mean, you can't go up to, your local big box store and say, "Hey, can you like make me a couple pounds of gnocchi?" And like I know you don't have any in there, but can you go in the back and like whip some up in the next 7 minutes?
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
just doesn't happen that way. But you go to these to smaller businesses and support them, and you can get you get that kind of care, and they take care of you that way.
We try to keep our prices fairly reasonable. Um, I mean, the whole egg crisis now is like
Yeah.
that's a huge thing for people. We do breakfast sandwiches too, obviously, and
Oh, I know.
we
I've had some good ones.
we had to raise our price. Like we raised our price. We only raised it 75 cents,
Hmm.
but we give 2 eggs. We give fried eggs, so they're not, you're getting 2 solid eggs. It's not like a lot of places give scrambled eggs. So you don't know, you get 1 egg kind of,
Right.
but we give a good hearty sandwich for a great price. And we just raised the price like a couple weeks, like 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, because now the cost is starting to hit us.
Hmm.
But we always try to keep it for the community. Like we want to make money, but we also want to have customers, so we don't price ourselves out of the box.
Right.
We try to keep it to where it is.
Right.
And
Where
Yeah,
it's,
we try to give, healthy portions and, you go to like some places and you're like, there's 3 pieces of ham on here, like
yeah,
for like a 12-inch sub. So,
oh yeah.
especially like when I'm doing the salads, like, that's a huge seller. I'm always trying to come up with like funky salads. I
Yeah.
got a meat one coming down the line.
Okay. I'll
But
have to keep my eye open for that. Send Jim for that one.
yeah,
yep.
but like, it's like I said with the carrots before, it's a couple little, like it just makes a difference.
Yeah.
And, people want to, we want them to enjoy it, not open it and be like, cool,
Yeah.
so
You don't
we definitely take
underwhelmed.
pride in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We do a lot of shop, like a different shopping. Like we were at D loves it, Restaurant Depot down in Wilkes-Barre.
Oh yeah.
But we only go you can't go every week, but we'll go like maybe once a month or maybe every other week. We try to get down there. The prices are most of them are better than what you normally get. The only thing is they don't carry every product, like and how could they? But they don't carry every product. But that's how we try to cut some costs for our customers. Like pizza, for instance, I buy my sauces down there sometimes when we get down there, and I'll buy more than I would normally buy. It doesn't go bad. It's in cans.
Hmm.
You're going to use it regardless, but I can save $4 or $5 per case.
Yeah.
So we buy it. And then at the end of the thing, we might have saved $200-300 by making that trip, which it's an all-day trip. It never just
And it's so fun.
works out.
Not a browser. He's one that's like in and get to the point.
Yeah.
Like,
Well.
no, you have to, and that's another part of the cooking. Like, I like to look around and, well, what's this and what can I make with this? And because our features every week, like that's tough every week, coming up with different things and what are
Yeah.
people gonna like and what's it gonna sell? And am I gonna buy this and it's not gonna sell? And so like I love it. And the whole place is like a cooler. So you really gotta bundle up and it's an experience. It's fun.
I've always said I appreciate going to restaurants that have small menus. Like sometimes you go to them and it's like page upon page
Yes.
upon page of menus. I would rather a small menu to pick from, like
Yes.
an everyday menu, and then have like you guys have specials and daily features that change regularly. That to me is more exciting than going to a restaurant that has like a 4-page menu that I've got to read through and everything's like meh. Whereas if you
Yeah.
have a small one and you knock everything out of the park, I'd rather
Yeah.
eat there any day than.
And that's something that we always try to do. I say there's still some things that we can do better. Sometimes with bread chicken, and we'll make something with breaded chicken. But for the most part, I buy a good breaded chicken for like our chicken parm hoagies and stuff like that. But nothing's like when you bread it yourself. The
Mhm.
problem that comes upon is us employees. We got to start a factory in order to bread 80 pounds of chicken.
Oh my
It
gosh.
doesn't, it's just hard for us to get to everything.
And
So
everybody
some,
gets those breading fingers.
oh God. So we try to get some good product, buy good product if we can
Right.
without, but there's some things but our menu's not really big, like even for and it's just hoagies. It's not like it's crazy. Like we're not doing any type of fine dining dinners, but our cheese, the steak that we use for our cheesesteaks, I pay more for it. I pay like $12 more a case, and we go through 7, 8 cases a week. But it's what we use, and it's good product, and we make sure that
Hmm.
when we do something, that it's gonna taste good. And
Hmm.
then my hot wing hoagies. Some people hate my hot wing sauce. This isn't hot wing
My
sauce.
husband is not one of them.
No. And for the majority,
We tell them when someone's like, oh,
a girl told me that I need to change it. And I'm like, well, that'll never happen. But everybody's got their own flavor. But I make the sauce. I don't buy it. I'm not just using Frank's Red Hot and butter. I make a sauce. It's Southern style sauce. I started making it back in 2006, and
Hmm.
it's been the same since day one. I've never changed not one item in that sauce, and I never will. We might come up with another one to just back it up for people that have an option, but we try to keep everything the way it is. Some people, with their hot wing hoagies, use a chopped chicken. We use a breaded chicken, which I think holds the sauce way better, and
Yeah.
people seem to enjoy it more than we sell a ton of them.
Hmm.
So, it comes down to some people's flavors, but we try to keep the menu small so that we can use good product. This ricotta, this super fina, it's not the cheapest by no means. It costs like $40 a case for it, and or maybe four. It might be 44 now because milk, everything's up a little bit. But that is something that I will not vary from. I can make gnocchis from anything, any type
Right.
of cheese. I can make them and they'll still be good, but it's not something that I choose to do. Now, if it's out and I can't do it, then we use something different. They're
Right.
still good though.
Right. Right. No, that's fantastic. And like I said, my husband will be the first one to attest that your hot wing sauce is amazing. He tells the story all the time about, I think it was like a New Year's Eve or something. He was working and you were about to close and he goes in, you bring him in the back and you're like, hold on, I'll make you something. And you bring him in the back and he's like, Chris, he made the sauce from scratch right in front of me. He's like, here he was closing up and he's making me sauce from scratch. He was, you like blew his mind that day. And I think you had a follower from that day forward.
Yep. Yep.
it's small little things like that that just,
Yeah.
they make a difference and people remember. And it's not like, oh, we're closed. Sorry. It's like people are coming in because they're hungry. They don't want
Yeah.
like, a pack of gum. Like, so sometimes we'll be closing up and we don't get out of there forever because like the phone will ring and I'll be like, well, I don't have the grill off yet. Or, the one time the grill was like totally off and somebody came in and you can tell the guy was working all day. He's like, oh, I just wanted a cheesesteak. I'm like, I'll make you one in a skillet quick. Like it's totally fine.
Yeah.
Like and but it doesn't makes a difference. Like, and again, when you're feeding people, they're hungry and they're choosing us. So,
Yeah.
we try to make that little difference.
I love that. Well, I could talk with you guys all day long, but I mean, that would make for a very long episode. So
Well,
if you were binging that, you'd have to be going on a long road trip.
if you want, I can show you. Oh, I was going to say, I would show you, just go to the recipe with you real
Yep.
quick.
Yep.
Okay. So basically, 3 pounds of ricotta cheese, and you can break it down. So sometimes when you buy it in the store, it's only 2 pounds.
Hmm.
So this is a 3 pound. You do 1 egg, give 1 egg per pound. In the mix, I usually put the eggs in first, crack them, put them in, mix them up. I put a little seasoning in the egg wash, which is can we get
Like
yeah.
salt and
So
pepper.
so salt, pepper, oregano, basil, and granulated garlic.
Okay.
And not much. It's however you think. I don't have a specific measurement. I just put a pinch of this, a pinch of that,
You measure with your heart.
basically. And then for flour, all-purpose flour,
Okay.
um, I'm assuming that this is somewhere around 8 ounces. I use about 8 ounce, so say 40 ounces of flour,
Okay.
but I'll put in 4 cups first, let
Okay.
it all come together, and then add whatever little bit else that I need to.
So you
But
can always add more. You can't take it out.
that's it. That's it. And then basically you'll have a nice dough ball.
And do you mix it by hand or do you use a spoon or do
I
you use
use
your
a
mixer?
mixer.
Okay.
I'll use a mixer, and then this is what you'll have in a couple minutes after putting it together. And you can just basically roll it right out. Roll it right out. And
Now, do you have to let it rest before you start rolling it, or can
you
you use
don't
it?
know, you don't have to, not with a gnocchi, because it's already together.
Okay.
Everything comes together. And then, again, you can just cut them however you want. So this is how my mother used to do it with the little
Okay.
dimples.
Yeah.
Some people use a fork, but otherwise it's just that's it. Put a little
Okay.
flour down, roll it, and you're good to go.
Okay. And so then you can then take those and throw them on a cookie sheet and freeze them for
Yep.
later. But I think the
Right.
dimple or the rolling it on a fork definitely helps because it gives somewhere for the sauce to cling
Sauce to
to
sit.
and yeah, for it to hold on to that sauce. That's
Absolutely.
So I would probably, like, if I made a big batch of them, like I said, just throw them on a cookie sheet, throw them in the freezer, and then when they're like par frozen, slap them all in a Ziploc or
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Once they're a little frozen, they won't stick together anymore.
yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. That's such an easy recipe too. So
Yep.
simple with all your any kind of sauce that you like with it. That is awesome. So before we go, why don't you remind everybody where they can find you online? Now, if you're Northeastern Pennsylvania based, tell them where to go.
So we are on Facebook at DK's Corner. That's our main thing. We're on Instagram. And then we are located at 201 Cherry Street in Jessup. It's the old Mafalda's building. So if you're familiar with Jessup, Dave will always try to give people landmarks from, I say, the new mini mart by the underpass. I say we're right across the street.
Okay.
So, and we're just this little building. There's a garage door on it and you can't miss us. And it's nice because the summer, we pop the garage door open and, come visit us.
Awesome. And they have great food that you can, order ahead and take it out, or they do catering. I know they came in clutch for my son's graduation party at the last minute. Um, but I mean, such great food. So if you are in northeastern Pennsylvania, or if you're just passing through, maybe you're here to do an office tour or whatever, definitely check them out. Thank you so much for joining us today, Deanna and Dave.
Thanks
We
for having us.
appreciate it. And thank you guys for tuning into today's episode of Behind the Recipe. I hope you enjoyed our conversation and picked up a few tips or even some recipes to try in your kitchen. And if you love this episode, don't forget to subscribe and leave a review, and of course, share it with your friends. And I'd love to hear all of your questions and feedback and recipe ideas. Just head over to itisakeeper.com/BTR. And until next time, happy cooking. And remember, everything's better when shared in the kitchen.